Hi everyone, welcome to Entre elle. I'm your host, Tombeni Kouloufoua, and this podcast is a platform for women of the world to tell their professional success stories. Twice a month, I interview a woman who shares her professional journey and her personal goals. Whether she lives in Abidjan, Accra, London, Paris, or San Francisco, her human experience is universal. Before we dive into today's episode, I'm going to take a quick minute to speak to you directly. I'd love to hear from you and know what you think about Entre elle. If you love the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, comment on social media, or email me to let me know how you feel about Entre elle, what you'd like to see here, or what I could do better. Now, welcome to episode 19. This week, I take you to Ghana to meet Freda Obeng-Ampofo, founder and chief mixer at Kaeme Cosmetics. Kaeme is a cosmetic company that specializes in premium quality shea butter and liquid black soap. Let me tell you about Freda. I was chasing her for an interview and found out that she was 2 weeks away from giving birth to her second child. We agreed to record the interview before she had the baby because, being a mother myself, I know time becomes really scarce once you have a newborn. On the day of the interview, I get a text from Freda at 5 a.m. to let me know that she's in labor and heading to the hospital. And the text ends with, "But we can still record today." Okay, first of all, how incredibly professional is that? And second, she kept me posted and we had back and forth throughout the morning trading jokes. Turns out that she's also incredibly funny. Anyway, Freda safely delivered the baby girl and we rescheduled the interview. The point of the story is that this is a woman of great taste who makes the most luxurious products, runs marathons, and is so dedicated to her business that she will text you while in labor. Here is our conversation, recorded remotely between Accra and London. Hi Freda, welcome to Entre elle.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
First of all, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're very busy and this was not an easy one to squeeze in, so I'm very grateful. You are the founder and chief mixer, we'll come back to what chief mixer means, of a Ghanaian cosmetic brand called Kaeme Cosmetics. I love this story because really your products brought me to you. I tried them, loved them so much. For some reason, was convinced that a woman was behind the brand. And it turned out I was right. So I'm so happy to have you on.
Yay.
So let's start with your early years. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Tombani, for having me. I was born and grew up in Ghana. I think I spent most of my formative years here and then moved to the US for high school. While I was there, so I went to high school in the US, I went to college in the US, and then I did political science and economics in college. Graduated early, so decided to spend my last semester in Washington, D.C., since I was doing political science. While I was in DC, I worked for different organizations spanning NGOs. So I worked for an NGO that lobbied the US Congress and US Senate for debt relief for African countries. I also worked for a company that was providing clean water to some African countries. Then I moved on to work with a private firm that sourced wines from Provence for US market as well as Thai furniture for US market. And then from there, I went to work for a global health firm, also in Washington, D.C., where I was managing the portfolio for West Africa. After that, I decided to move to France for grad school. So I went to Sciences Po, Paris. I spent about 2 years there. While I was there, I also did some research for different organizations. I did research on urban renewal in Hong Kong. For those who know Hong Kong, it's an island, so land space is scarce. So a lot of the work on housing is based on urban renewal and trying to use the land effectively. So I did a lot of research on that. It was really interesting. And then I also did some monitoring and evaluation work in Tanzania. After all of that, I decided that I wanted to come back to Ghana because I hadn't been to Ghana since my teenage years. And people had been asking me, people always ask, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'll say, "I'm Ghanaian." And then they'll ask specific questions, and I felt like I was lost. So this was my time to come back to Ghana before going back to the US. I came back to Ghana, worked for the European Union delegation here in Ghana. And then while I was here, I experienced a few things that were happening in the country and decided that I wanted to stay. I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay and contribute, but I didn't really know how to contribute or how I was going to contribute. My stint at the EU delegation ended, and then I got a job with the U.S. Embassy, United States agency, the U.S. agency arm that provides international development. So I was also working for the region, so doing some budget and strategy work for the region as well. I started Kaeme as a hobby. I have to say that I've always loved shea butter. I'm one of five kids, and I'm the last born, and I'm the only girl. So shea butter has always been a staple for me because I traveled a lot, and that's something that my mom will always give me whenever I traveled. And so I will create really nice gifts out of it for my friends during their anniversaries. So when I came to Ghana, a friend was doing her wedding, and I didn't have enough money to contribute to her wedding. So I offered to do favors. The long and short of the story is that a lot of the people who came to the wedding that got the favors came back and wanted more of the shea butter. So that's sort of how I started making it. Eventually, I realized that there was demand for it. So that's sort of how Kaime was born. This is a form of introduction.
Yeah, and that was a great introduction. Listening to your initial professional experiences, let's say, it seems like a lot of those jobs were influenced by your own identity as an African woman. Would you say that that's accurate? How much of your work is influenced by your own identity?
Growing up, I actually looked up to, and I mean, at the time, Kofi Annan had been the UN Secretary General. And, the stereotype that the West have of the South. And so growing up and even traveling, for me, I wanted to break some of the stereotypes. So I wanted to be that Black woman that excelled. I wanted to be that Black woman that, defended Africa. I wanted to be that Black woman that showed the rest of the world that Africa has a lot more positives than the negatives that were displayed in the media and around the world. I wanted to be one of the people that changed the narrative about Africa. And so for me, that was what was at the back of my mind. And, growing up, my family will always say, oh, I'll be the next Condoleezza Rice or I'll be the next Kofi Annan, just that I'll be a woman. And for me, whatever I did had to tie back to the continent, and I had to bring some sort of glory back to the continent. And I also wanted to kind of defy the stereotypes because I really didn't believe in them. But yeah, you're right. So in general, I wanted to do political science. I wanted to travel. I wanted to explore. But within all of that, I wanted to bring that glory back to Africa.
Talking about that decision that you made of returning to Ghana, was it a difficult decision to make, or was it similar to Sciences Po, like I'm ready, I want to do this, let's go?
It was both. It was difficult and it was easy at the same time. So the difficult part was that I hadn't been to Ghana for a while. I left when I was young, and I didn't really have family here when I moved back. So even kind of settling back would have been a problem because I didn't have a place to stay. Like I technically didn't know anyone except my family in the village. But I wasn't planning on staying in the village, right? I was planning on staying in Accra, the capital city. So that was one. Two, a lot of the people who really knew me well had cautioned me about coming back to Ghana because they said, with you and your personality, you will not make it in Ghana. They will, like, you will die. Like, either that or you will run back in a few months. Um, so that was kind of scary. And then they're like, with all these good schools that you went to, you're gonna go back to Ghana to do what? Basically, there wasn't a lot of good feedback for me the moment I decided to move back. But I think that's also what propelled me to move back because, again, typical Frida mentality. the thing that people tell me I cannot do is the thing I want to do to prove them wrong. So the more people said I couldn't make it, the more I told myself I will come and I will make it, and they will live to see that I made it and that I'm successful. So I came back knowing that Ghana was not France, Ghana was not Switzerland, Ghana was not Guatemala, Ghana was not the US, Ghana was Ghana. So I came with no expectations, knowing that things may not be as smooth here as they were in other countries, and that things are different here and that system works different. And I think that was the mindset that helped me kind of adjust back. But yeah, I got back. I didn't have family here. I stayed with a friend's family for some time until I got myself together to get housing and everything. So even though this is my country of birth and I called myself Ghanaian, I came back here sort of as a foreigner. The only thing that kind of worked for me was that I spoke the language very well. I spoke and wrote the language, so that helped a lot.
So let's talk about Kaeme. Before we start talking about the business itself and how you started the company, can you explain to our audience how raw shea butter is generally used in West Africa? I'll say West Africa because I think the way it's used in Ghana is similar to the way it's used in Cote d'Ivoire and Benin, etc.
You're right. Absolutely. I think for us, for the region, when I say the region, I mean West Africa, shea butter is a staple. For most homes, you find shea butter. It's used for everything. I mean, I grew up using it. You know, the thing on your belly button when you're born, your placenta, we put shea butter on it to get it to separate. We put shea butter on newborn babies because it's the best moisturizer for them. We use shea butter for cooking. Shea butter is used in making chocolate. Shea butter is used for when you have wounds. Shea butter is used for your hair. Shea butter is our go-to, all in all, everything. You know, when in doubt, use shea butter. You know, that's for me growing up. That's really what it was, and it's a cure-all for everything. You can't really go wrong with it. So for me, growing up, being in Ghana and then having traveled in a lot of West African countries, shea butter is the thing. It's a household name. It's a thing that we use, and it's for everything. Whether you're eating it, whether you're using it for health reasons, whether you're using it for skin deformities, shea butter is the ish.
Yeah, it is indeed. So tell me about Kaime. How did you start this company? You were telling us earlier that you were sort of playing around with it and making favors for your friends and and had, let's say, a special relationship to it, I would even say, because I mean, I don't play around with shea butter. Like I just, you give it to me, I use it, and that's it, right? So, um, how did you start with Kaime, and what does the name mean, also?
So for me, shea butter for me was, kind of playing with shea butter for me was a passion. It was something I did, like I said, and I would create gifts. And I believe in unique gifts. I believe people are different. And so you have to make unique gifts and people have to feel special. So I'll create it for people. And like I said earlier, it's kind of a friend's wedding that I made favors for. And then I kept getting demand and demand for it. So I kind of started making it as a pilot, to see, when I decided, okay, this is working, I want to make it into a business. I actually took time to sit and strategize and then do a lot of research, like what's already in the system. Obviously, Ghana is a shea butter haven, like a lot of West African countries. So, what is it that's going to be the added value to your shea butter that's different, that's going to attract customers? And at the time, I realized that a lot of the gazillion shea butter companies in the system still had the raw shea butter, which a lot of people knew and loved, but people hated it because it was hard to put on your skin. And then those who kind of managed to put it on their skin, they felt like it had this pungent smell. So again, in true Frida nature, I said, there's a problem. We need a solution. So let me find a solution. Let me be the solution here. So what I did was that I'm going to create a brand that keeps the natural properties of the local shea butter that we use, but with the added value of making it smell good and making it easier to smear on your skin without getting rid of any of the original benefits. Now, in addition to that, having traveled all over the world, I will always visit all these cosmetic shops and then realize that people will advertise shea butter, shea butter, shea butter. Not a lot of them were really giving credit to Ghana, and I knew these shea butters were from Ghana. In addition to that, they were so expensive. So, in addition to kind of solving this problem of the hard shea butter and the pungent shea butter, I wanted to create a global brand that is made in Ghana, that is globally competitive with the top shea butter brands in the world. So, after making it easy to smear, after making it smell good, I wanted to create a packaging that was attractive to people around the world. Now, that takes a lot of work. So, I think one of the first things I did was really invest in a brand strategist. And I came up, with the name Kaime because Kaime is a Chi word. It's a Ghanaian word that means remember me or forget me not. I chose that one because it's short and that's good for advertising and branding. Two, because it's Ghanaian and I wanted the brand to remember itself, know that it's Ghanaian, even after doing so well globally, because I knew it will do well globally, right? And third, I chose the name Kaimi because it means remember me. And there's something so special about remembrance and nostalgia and all that. So every time you used the brand Kaime, I wanted a few things to happen. I wanted you to feel so good about the product that you always come back. Two, I wanted you to remember the person that gave it to you. If it was given to you as a gift, I wanted you to remember that person because of the good feeling you got from using the product. Now, if you're buying it for yourself, every time you enter that bathroom with the Kaimi soap, or every time you put that Kaimi shea butter on your skin, and every time you start feeling so great, you remember that brand. So all of that is like part of the whole branding. So I don't know if you're getting the drift, but the name Kaimi means remember me. So everything we do around it has to be about remembrance, whether it's the customer remembering us for the excellent customer service they got, or whether it's the customer remembering us for the excellent product that they have, or whether it's the customer learning one or two things about Ghana that's positive because Kaime existed. Everything around the brand, around the product has to be about remembrance and good feelings, good feelings, good feelings. So that's why I chose the word Kaime.
As a consumer, I couldn't agree with you more. The issue with shea butter was always the texture and the smell. And I'm so grateful to entrepreneurs like yourself who worked really hard at fixing those issues. The three things I love about your products are exactly the ones you mentioned: the scents, the texture, and the luxurious packaging. I think you really mastered those three elements. When you did all this work, did you think this was a viable business? There are already other brands out there that use shea butter, and as you were saying, then you've got all these other brands, from Europe, the US, etc., that often don't even use shea butter in big quantity, right? They say it's shea butter, but then it's the
10%.
yeah.
And it's refined shea butter, so it's not even good for you.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. But did you think right away, as you were saying, that you were going to go global? And did you understand what it took? And it seems like you did because of the packaging, right?
Yeah. So for me, maybe my traveling abroad also helped a lot because I had seen um, good things, for lack of better word. While I was in France, I frequented the Joe Malone store quite a bit. Like I knew all their scents. I loved their branding. There are a few other brands that I absolutely love, like L'Occitane. I love Aesop. I love Ashley and Co from Australia. So they're brands that I like because I love luxury stuff, right? And I know they're really big global brands, right? They have the money and the resources. That's great. I knew Kaime will survive even within the saturated market because I had done my research and I had come up with a niche that I wanted to serve. And I had come up with what I saw as something that would be unique about Kaime that was very different from everything I've seen in the market. So for me, that was a good enough convincing argument for me to start. So that was one. Two, I had seen demand in the little products that I had made for people. So I was like, okay, let me do more research to get more information about what this demand is all about. So, I mean, there's a lot of research that went into starting Kaime. And that's something that I also talk to a lot of budding entrepreneurs about. You see a company that's successful, quote unquote, it takes a lot of work, a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of resources. And it took more than a year to come up with the name Kaime and a lot of resources to my brand strategist, you know? And when I tell people, they're like, but why did you spend so much money on it? Well, you do need to do your research and you need to be convinced enough that this is a venture that's gonna work. Um, and so for me, I had really done enough research. I knew why I wanted to do it. I knew what my unique value proposition was going to be. I knew who my clients were going to be. I knew which niche I wanted to target. And so I was ready to start. Now, having said that, I also made room for failure. I knew that the market was saturated and that there's a possibility for me to fail, and I was ready for it. That if it failed, it's okay for it to fail. At least I tried it. And that's maybe the adventurous part of me because I don't expect to always succeed, but I expect to try.
I've interviewed quite a few entrepreneurs in this podcast, and you're the first one to mention working with a brand strategist. How did you decide to use a brand strategist?
So that's a good question. I decided to use a brand strategist because I knew that I could create the shea butter. My favorite part about Kaime is the product making process, which I'm the brain behind that, right? So I knew I could do that. I knew I could find funding if I wanted to, or at least I had networks I could tap into for that. I knew I could use my skin as advertising if I needed. But what I didn't know was branding. Like that's not my thing. I've never done it before. I don't know what it looks like if I see it. Like, so for me, that was the first thing I thought of. I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there when it came to branding. So that was the one of the first things I decided to spend money on. And let me tell you, my brand strategist is expensive, but he's worth it. He's worth it all. So I started knowing what I was capable of and what I wanted to kind of outsource. And I think that's one thing that entrepreneurs sometimes we forget. We think we can do it all, and sometimes we do it all, but sometimes we're too stretched. And so some of these things are things we need to think through and figure out what is it that we're good at. And then the things we're not good at, we just kind of outsource it to people who are good at it and then have them do it for us. So for me, that was a brand strategist because I knew nothing about branding. I knew good branding when I saw it. I just didn't know how to get there. So I was convinced that I needed to pay someone big bucks to do that for me. And let me tell you, this brand strategist started with us day one when he didn't even know how successful or unsuccessful Kami was gonna be. And he's been with us since day one and he's still with us. And so sometimes you also just need someone to believe in you. That's my story on the branding. But I think it's very critical.
Thank you. I think that will be very helpful for others. So we've talked about shea butter, but another product that you do is black
Mhm.
soap. Can you tell us about black soap? Can you tell the audience, for those who don't know, what is behind the name? Because we see the same thing plastered everywhere, but it doesn't always tell the same story.
Absolutely. Black soap, man, black soap for me again, it's also like shea butter, but unlike shea butter, it's less known, at least globally. Black soap is made from cocoa pod, shea butter, um, and sometimes depending on who is making it, it could be cocoa pod or plantain potash mixed with shea butter or coconut oil, baked in an oven or traditional oven, which comes out in a powder form that's either molded into hard soap or made into liquid soap for bathing. I love black soap because just like shea butter, it's very, very, very um, raw and organic. I say organic in the literal sense of the word, as in there are no chemicals really. And when you use real black soap to bath, you feel clean, like you feel it. You feel that you're clean. And for those of us who had that benefit of growing up in Africa, myself included, I've really come to enjoy the benefits of black soap. Just like shea butter, it's good for a lot of skin issues. And for me, I use it for everything. I use it as a face wash, I use it as a makeup remover, I use it to wash my natural hair, I use it to bath. Even sometimes I use it to wash my clothes. It's a do all. That's one thing I love about shea butter and black soap, because they're so versatile, and because they have no chemicals in it. It's for everything, and I use it for my newborns and I use it for my kids. So yeah, but it's less well known around the world. It's now gaining momentum, because there are a lot of African cosmetic brands that are now popping globally.
So who's your customer? Who's the Kaime customer?
The Kaime customer is the health conscious upper class professional that's a global citizen, that really cares about what they put on their skin, that cares about simple luxuries.
It's so many of us, right? Who fit into that category.
Yes, yes, we don't discriminate.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your channels of distribution and where you're sold at the moment? I bought your products in Côte d'Ivoire the last time I was there. So I know you're stocked in Côte d'Ivoire. But apart from that,
Absolutely. So the first channel I would say is our website, which is www.kaime.com. And I talk about that first because it's open 24/7. You could order there anytime you want within any time zone. You could pay with any kind of debit or credit card or any sort of. Once you get there, it sees where you are and it provides you the payment options. So you can shop there anytime. We ship to you 3 to 5 business days guaranteed, so that we really stick to our word. If not, your money back with no fuss. So that's the first point of distribution for us. For those in Ghana, we have a brick and mortar in Laboni, that you close to the U.S. Embassy, that you can come there and first try our products, because we believe in experiences. So if we had a way, we would love for you to try the products before you use it, because we want the product to speak for itself. So those in Ghana, you come to our shops, you try it, and then you make your decision. We have specific distributors in different countries. We have some distributors in Nigeria, Cotonou, Ivory Coast. We're working on Dakar as we speak. We're working on the entire continent of Europe as we speak. For the US, we have quite a few distributors there that represent us, so that's easy. But our first point of contact really is the website, where we have all the information, contact information, but also all the products that we have that you can buy within the touch of a button.
before we move to the current situation and COVID, I wanted to also ask you about the customer's experience, which you just referred to, because it's interesting that it's something that I often hear American entrepreneurs talk about at length. The customer's experience. Yeah, it's something that is really thought about, talked about, and is really at the center of the strategy of a brand. It's very rarely mentioned by African entrepreneurs. So can you talk a bit about that, about the customer's experience, and why you think it matters so much?
I think for me, it's probably number one. It's key. Like,
Mm.
the customer has to feel good about the product they're buying, and the customer has to enjoy the experience, because for me, more than the product you're buying, it's the experience you're buying. Because there's so many other companies that you could be going to buy maybe a similar product, but when you come to us, I want the whole experience to be so special and so unique that you can't help but come back. Now, that includes the moment you get in touch with us, whether it's through our website, whether it's in person, whether it's through our distributors. The moment you have an encounter with us, if it's on our website, we make sure that the website is user friendly. Um, Payment, the whole process of selecting your product, the whole process of the explanation, everything is so clear and easy that the customer has no problem, that everything is so swift. Now, we're not perfect, right? So if anything were to go wrong, we normally see it on the back end and we will reach out to you right away. So that's on the website. For the in person, whenever you come to our store, you're greeted with a smile. I mean, I'm telling my workers, we exist because of our customers. If customers don't show up, we die. So when you get that customer in there, you make them feel good. I mean, I can't even stress that enough. They have to feel good about being there, being in your presence, being in the shop. Like, you need to make them feel like they're God, that they're goddess, because I also like to feel good when I'm coming to buy your product. I mean, who doesn't like to be treated well? And if I'm coming to give you my money, you better treat me well. That's how I see things, and that's how I want my customers to be treated. So I tell my employees, if you're not having a good day, don't come to work, because that one customer you meet might be your saving grace, and you don't want to not show her the best smile or give her the best customer experience. And also, I talked a bit about not discriminating. That's also part of the customer experience. So you have some shops or services where you enter because of how you look or what you're wearing. People size you down, look you up. Akaime, no, 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 no. Every customer that walks in, whether they're buying $0 or whether they're buying $1 billion, we treat them the same, because you just don't know who is going to be your next customer. So for us, I think more than making customers feel good about interacting with us, it also kind of plays into our branding and our name, Kaime. Whenever you encounter us, whether it's from the website, whether it's from our store, whether it's from using the product, whether it's from your impression of our labeling and our branding, we want you to remember us by that experience. That's the experience that will bring you back. And so for us, that's very critical. And I hope I'm making that clear. And that's why for me, I think the customer experience is like number one, number one, number one. Like, so much so that we have 100% return policy. If you buy our product and you're not satisfied, you're not happy with it, we will give you your money back, because that's all part of the customer experience. Like, you have to feel good about your purchase, and we make every single product to ensure that you're happy with your product, that you will not return it. And that's why we offer 100% money back. And let me tell you, up to today, we haven't had people, any customer return products because of it's faulty or they didn't like it. It's always been the opposite. But yeah, for us, customer service is at the top of our list. I mean, top of our list. And I think it's more than just treating the customer well, right? It's also about treating your employees well. Because if your employees don't enjoy the work they do, they will not be happy, and they will not treat your customers well.
You'll also have a high turnover, which is not what you want.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to say most of the people that we work with have been with us from day one, and they plan to be there. Sometimes when we do our reviews and we ask them for, their, 3 to 5 year plan, they tell us their 10-year plan and it's to stay with Kaime. And I'm like, I know you want to stay with us, but you need to have other plans. Like, but I personally love the people I work with, and I think the people we work with love us, and we're like family. Really, we're like family. And I think the customer service thing, I look at it holistically as a founder. More than the customer, it's also about the employees. So I make sure that my employees are always happy. They're happy with the jobs that they're doing, they're happy to meet customers, and once that happens, then customers are happy. I have no problem with that. And I tell them, even talking to a customer on the phone, it's not face to face, but they could feel your aura through that phone line. And so you have to always smile. More than just the product, is the experience that bring people back.
So, how did you navigate the health crisis? Obviously, your logistics has been impacted, but in an interview to CNN, you stated that you were still committed to paying your employees in full, which you kind of touched on, by talking about your philosophy around how much you want your employees to enjoy working for Kaeme. So, can you tell us about how you navigated the crisis?
Yeah. So again, I treat my employees like I'll treat myself. So when the crisis happened, in fact, before the Ghanaian government made a decision to shut the city and the country down, I had already shut my store down earlier. I think a couple of weeks earlier, because one, I told myself, if I worked for someone, would I want to be going to work? Because I will feel at risk sitting in public transportation. A lot of my employees take two, three public transportation to get to work, and the risk of exposure is high. So I thought about that. But this whole COVID thing happened so quickly that nobody had any solution. Nobody knew anything, right? We were all trying to figure it out. And so while we were figuring it out, as a founder and as a leader, my decision was to shut down the store, at least for my employees, because I was still working, so that's like one more problem solved, while I could focus on figuring out what's next, right? Because I didn't want to be figuring out COVID while trying to figure out if my employees are exposed or not, and then how to deal with that. So the first decision was to shut down, at least for them, have them stay home. Those who could work from home will work from home. Those who couldn't, that's fine. We'll go ahead and pay you, because I knew that they also needed the money for their livelihood, and I understood that. So we shut down while we figured out what to do. So it was a moment by moment decision on really just monitoring what was going on in the world and what was going on in the country, and really making like real time decisions. And for Kaime, I'm quite grateful, because Kaime is one of the very few companies that still survived through this pandemic, that continues to survive, because, as you know, big companies in the world even shut down. So we're very grateful for that. But I think for me, one of the things that we did as management was to shut down while we figure out um, what the situation looks like and how we can best kind of salvage the situation. And during those times, we're still communicating with our customers online, and this brings back the customer experience again. During that pandemic, we weren't necessarily selling to customers. We were calling customers, we were emailing customers, we were posting on our social media, and we're asking customers how they were doing, how they were navigating this pandemic. It wasn't about buying or selling products. It was really trying to figure out what's their well-being, and really kind of, in a way, saying we're in this together, and then we'll get out of this together. At that point, it wasn't so much business. It was about, hey, how are you doing? Hey, Kaime lover, how are you doing? And again, I talk about family, family, family. Our employees are family, but our customers are also family. Um, so for me, that helped also kind of retain our customer base as well, and also to kind of like strengthen the bond between us and our customers, again, while we navigate everything that was going on. So yeah, we've been, I think one of the things I always credit Sionspor is a class that I took called scenario planning, that I always thought it would never come in handy, but here we are in a pandemic. My experience that I drew up on was from my sensible scenario planning classes, where you plan, you create a whole bunch of scenarios, and in this pandemic, create so many scenarios, and then think of, okay, if this happens, then this; if this happens, then this; if this happens, then this. So that was really some of the things I did to kind of keep us sustained while we figured out how the whole situation looked like.
Do you sell mainly on the continent, or one of the difficulties, let's say, of COVID was that yes, you had to shut down any physical store, but you could still, some brands survived through e-commerce, right, through online sales, but then the borders were closed. So does that mean that you were still, let's say, doing online sales, but only in Ghana? What did that look like in reality, let's say?
So we do both. We sell locally, we sell globally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the pandemic happened, obviously everything shut down, including logistics. So for our international customers, that was tough. it was also tough for our local customers because nobody was allowed to go out, right? So even your local dispatch cannot get on a motorcycle to deliver the product from neighbor A to neighbor B, right? One of the things that helped a bit was that, we sell black soap, and black soap is soap. You can use it to wash your hands, you could use it to bath. So we were selling a lot of black soap because we were telling people, wash your hands, bath, use hot water, all of that. And so now, even though global logistics had shut down, if there were certain essential items that could be mailed because they were emergency, and soap was one of them because soap was used to prevent COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because if you are asked to use soap to wash your hands, so we were able to sell our soaps and still ship them. The logistics companies will accept them because you have to declare that it was soap. Now, having said that, it was a bit more expensive to ship because there were a lot of surcharges due to COVID. But we were able to still get our products out because of that quote unquote clause on using soap to curb the spread of COVID. For our local customers, we will still have our dispatch. And police will stop them in the middle of the road to ask where they're going and why. And they'll say they're just delivering soap for COVID.
Yeah, and also black soap is not as harsh, right, as some of the other soaps.
No, no, you just have to be very strategic, I think. And again, that's where as a business leader, you have to think on your feet.
Yeah. Speaking of being a leader, what do you think are your most important assets?
Good question. I personally think it's for me, the ability to bring my team together. Um, I always say that you treat others as you want to be treated. So for me, at Kaeme, there's no CEO and there's no I don't know, dispatch or whoever the lowest person is. Everyone is the same, right? We all contribute something little that makes Kaime what it is. So if I don't create the product, my cashier cannot sell. And if my cashier sells and my dispatch does not take it to the customer, we don't get the money, right? So we all have our roles to play. And that's one thing I always talk to our team about. So if you kind of listen to any of my presentations, it's always about teamwork. I talk about teamwork a lot, but I also talk about diversity of thought and diversity of ideas. And I also talk about being family, 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 because everyone should feel good about where they work because that's what brings results. But also, if people feel like their voice is heard and that their ideas are part of the decision making process, they feel more included, right? So that's what I'll say is my leadership. That's how I see leadership. I could be too nice sometimes, so that's also something I'm working on. I'm working on being a bit more stern. We hinted about me being a chief mixer. I intentionally don't call myself founder or CEO because I think it's such a heavy word. But I like calling myself a chief mixer or a chief laborer because even though I'm the owner and founder, I'm doing the nitty gritty work with the rest of my team. So again, that's really how I see leadership.
And what would you say are the main challenges that you faced as an African entrepreneur?
My main and probably favorite one is everyone telling you you cannot make it, that is too difficult, that you can't make it, that you cannot make it, that you cannot make it, that you cannot make it. And then for the millionth time, that you cannot make it. And for me, the more you say I cannot make it, the more I'm telling you I'm gonna prove you wrong. So I guess that doesn't really work for me. But on a more serious note, I think one of the challenges for me, I'm big on Africa, Africanism, all of that. And so ideally, I will serve my people first, right? Charity begins at home. I'll serve my people. I will serve my neighborhood. I will serve my country. I will serve my neighboring countries. I'll serve my subcontinent. I'll serve my continent before serving everyone else. But as you know, going from Ghana to Togo to Benin to Nigeria is like impossible, right?
Yeah.
So trying to get goods across is like going through the skin of your teeth. So that's a huge challenge. Like border issues and pairing that with logistics is tough. So it makes that dream a bit hard to fulfill, but we're still working on that. So just border issues is a big thing. Um, Definitely financing. Kaime has been funded by me since inception, literally all my savings. Yeah. Because trying to get a loan or some sort of funding here is also impossible. If you're going to the bank, they're charging 35%. Well, if I had money, I wouldn't be borrowing money. And if you're going to charge me 35% interest, what's the point, right? So access to funding is always an issue for all entrepreneurs, but I think also on the continent it's even tougher. And also as a woman, I think sometimes we look ourselves as like we're not enough, but we're not enough that men are the ones that should be leaders, should succeed, and we always look down on ourselves. So I think that's also a challenge that a lot of us face. More importantly, I think for me, this is big for me. It's mentorship. There are a lot of us that don't have mentors, and that's something I create for a long time. I finally found one, and I think it made all the difference. So these are just some of the challenges that entrepreneurs like myself face.
Talking about funding, and would you, because I see now some African dedicated private equity funds. I saw something recently of a fund looking specifically into investing in African luxury brands. But that means that you would have to give up some equity. Is that something also that you're thinking about for the future, or is that not the approach that you want to take?
No, absolutely. I think for me, I always talk about it's better to own a small part of a big pie than to own a whole pie when it's so small. So, absolutely open to that. I think my biggest challenge is not being a finance person. I need to do a lot of work, background work, like research work on what all these things mean. And I'm obviously much better now, but when I started, I didn't know what all these terms even meant, like angel investor, like what every time anything finance, I kind of cringe into a hole. But absolutely, yeah, that's definitely something I'll look into. But I think more importantly, one of the things I'm very much interested in and looking for at the moment is strategic partners. Um, like people or organizations that have massive experience in this industry that are willing to partner to take Kaime to the next level. So, not so much just bringing in money and leaving, but also being like a daily hands on part of the company and helping it grow with your experience and resources.
You're ready for Shark Tank. Some people won't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Shark Tank is a TV show.
My mom watches it religiously and she's always calling me, like, you have to go on this thing.
Of course, you're so ready for it. Before we wrap up, you mentioned this chief mixer title. Um, and you started out making your products in your kitchen, as do many entrepreneurs who produce organic products. But I understand that now you have your own facility. Are you still as involved in the process now that you've grown?
Yes and no. I have hired people that I have trained to produce the product to my specifications, to my quality standards. I have trained them to, go through the whole quality process. I go in to check. I do a lot of spot checks. I do a lot of spot checks. So even though I'm not there when it's produced, I am there. I mean, like they know that it has to be made to my specifications, and I pop in randomly every now and then, just to check the quality and to do a lot of spot checks. But like I said, a lot of my production staff have been with me since day one. In fact, some of them were my mentees. Um, so they've been with me. They know what I look for, so much so that they're actually better than I am. They're products that I will look at and I'll be making a decision on it, and they will tell me, no, Frida, we're not selling this because it's A, B, C, and D. We're not selling it. So it goes into the not no sale pile. So I'm not there every single minute to produce and mix, but I'm still at the background. Like I'm making certain scent decisions, I'm mixing certain scents, and I'm doing a lot of the kind of bulk strategic work. And then they're doing a lot of the implementation with my supervision, as opposed to me doing the strategic work and doing implementation at the same time. All ideas are welcome from anyone, from the cleaner to the dispatch to the cashier to the operations director to whoever. Everyone's idea is welcome. So that includes your feedback on how the product should look or feel or taste or smell. Yes. And I try not to be, I'm not, anyway, I'm not an autocratic leader. I really give my staff the freedom to make a lot of the decisions.
That's a great quality as a leader, because often what I hear entrepreneurs say, and that is that it's very difficult to delegate, and it's very difficult to trust that your employees, your staff will carry the work the way you do. But at the same time, it's also trusting yourself as someone who's trained them, right? It's also knowing that you've trained them in a way where they understand and love the product as much as as much as you do, maybe. And
Training is key. Training is key. I mean, my staff know. I mean, they know and they know and they know. And I'm so, so, so proud to even say that some of my staff know how to produce the product more than I do, because I show them and then they're like, oh, Frida, I think we could even make it this way, or can do this to it, or we could make it, an extra 2 minutes because then it would do like this and that. And because they feel their ideas are welcome, they continue to innovate and kind of like iterate the whole process to make it better. So that's one thing. The other thing too is like, for a company to be sustainable, you have to be able to step back and let other people do the job. And sometimes it's very scary as a startup, a small business, or as an entrepreneur, but it's a risk you have to take. And I think that moment for me was when I had to step back for about 6 months when I had my first child, because I had such a complicated labor that I had to really be home for a long time, and I had to really trust my staff to run the company in my absence. And guess what? They did. For me, that was a testament to the training that they've received for years and years and years, and also their love for the company and their love for the products that they're creating.
that's amazing. So, what's your vision for Kaime?
Kaime, live forever. Um, I always talk about this. The goal is for Kami to be a globally competitive cosmetic company, in the same shelves as the world's most luxury products. We're definitely getting there. We're definitely getting there. We're working on a few products, a few new product developments. So customers should watch out for that. But also, what I want to tell our listeners today is that we thrive on feedback from our customers, because what you want is what we make, because that's what you will buy. So, in terms of next steps for Kaime, yes, we are soon gonna be one of the top global cosmetic companies from Ghana. Yay! But we continue to rely on you, for your feedback on how the products could be better. So please don't feel shy. Send us your feedback, and we really take every feedback we get into consideration in the product making process. So yeah, we're looking forward to making Africa proud. We're looking forward to making Ghana proud by making the best shea butter, black soap, African print toiletry bags, and handmade soy candles in the world. From Ghana to you, with love.
Amen. Thank you so much for making these gorgeous products, and for taking the time to chat with Entre elles. I know that we'll see Kaime products very soon worldwide on the same shelves as all the global luxury brands. I'm really, really grateful that you took the time after just giving birth, I have to say, because the listeners need to know that you had a baby a week ago, and that I feel really grateful to have you on such a short time after. So thank you so much, Frida.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. And that's the entrepreneur grind. I have the baby here while I'm talking, and I'm proud of that. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much to Freda Obeng-Ampofo for sharing her inspiring journey and so many useful tips that will help those thinking of starting a business, current entrepreneurs, or those simply looking to be inspired. Please make sure to try Kaeme products. I couldn't recommend them enough. And as Freda said, once you've tried them, you will remember them. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Entre Elles, and if you did, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app and subscribe to be notified of new episodes. While you're there, please leave us a rating and a review to support us. You can follow us on social media at Entre Elles Podcast. Thank you for listening, and see you in 2 weeks for a new episode in French and in a month for a new episode in English.